There's a long-running joke in the computer troubleshooting world, which is, have you tried turning it off and turning it on again? Now, of course, most people say, well, of course I know how to turn it on and turn it off. That's the basics of using any kind of device, whether it's a tablet, an iPad, an iPhone, Android device, laptop, desktop, doesn't matter. Most people think they know how to turn it on and turn it off properly. But do you? I'm Gareth from Get It Fixed, and this is Gary, and this is Roxy, our Chief of Security. And we help people solve a variety of problems, and we also do repairs. Now, I challenge you to watch the rest of this video to find out if you actually do know the different ways you can turn things off and on, and whether you're doing it the right way. Almost every single device has an actual power button. So sometimes on devices, the power button and the home button and all this sort of things all rolled into one button, but generally most devices have a power button, and that is indicated by a circle with a line through the top. Now that circle represents 0 and the line going through the top is a 1. That essentially represents the digital 0 for off and 1 for on, and they've just merged them together. Now the normal way to turn on pretty much any device is to just press the power button for as long as it takes to say the word press. But you will find with some devices that you actually need to hold the power button down longer. So longer than it takes to say the word press. Now what you do is you hold it down for about 2 or 3 seconds, and then you wait several seconds to see if it jumps into life. If you press the button again before that period of time has passed and allowed it to actually come on, you've actually switched it off again. So it may seem like, oh, this thing's not turning on, but you're actually just turning it on, turning it off, turning it on, turning it off. So hold it down for at least 2 or 3 seconds, release, and then wait for at least 5 to 10 seconds, and the device usually will then begin to start up. Every device has a certain different way of actually powering on. So when you get a new computer or laptop, you find out which way is the way that your actual device turns on, and then that is the way you should continue to do it. Now some people say, well, I just press the button and the thing jumps into life like that. What that means is your device is actually in sleep mode. So it's not actually powered off. It's actually been sitting in a very low power mode. So it's been sitting there slowly but surely draining the battery just keeping the memory active so that it knows where to be when you actually activate. Essentially the screen has been turned off, the system has been put into a low power mode and just waiting for you to activate something. So that's with a tablet. With a laptop, typically you open the screen and it jumps into life. That means your computer is actually on. It hasn't actually been switched off. Now, sleep mode is basically your computer is sitting with everything you've been doing in memory. Now, if your battery runs out while in sleep mode, if you haven't saved your work, you may lose whatever was actually happening when you actually close the lid of your laptop. Different things with tablets. Tablets basically will remain active, but if you run out of power, same thing may actually happen if you were in the middle of something on an app and it wasn't saved. Usually with apps on the phones and tablets, it's saved as you're doing it. But if you're using an app that requires saving and the battery runs out, you could lose that information. So when your tablet is on and you just push the button like this and it goes off, that's not off. You have just put it into sleep mode. So when you push the button again, it comes back on, ready to go. Now, how do you then actually turn it off? The same deal with laptops. You can actually just close the lid or push the power button and it goes into a hibernation mode. So in hibernation mode, what actually happens is the computer saves where it's at onto its hard drive and it remembers where you are. So when you open it up again, it actually loads everything back up into memory in order for you to use it again. Now the memory is a sort of temporary holding area. Everything works in memory and the hard drive is where everything is stored. When you're hibernating the system, again, it's stored, but you can actually completely power it off. So when you power it back on, it does take longer to start, but it also goes back to exactly where you were. So in that case, it's essentially like sleeping, but if you're going to do it for a long period of time, you can put it into that hibernation mode. That generally works with desktops and laptops. Tablets and that sort of thing, it's better just to power it off because they power up pretty fast. Now, of course, if you leave your computer unattended or your tablet or your phone or whatever, generally it goes into a sleep mode first. So your phone tends to do that. Your tablet will do that after sometimes 30 seconds by default, or you can set it to go longer than that. The screen turns off, but the device is still on. It's in a sort of sleep mode. Now, with a computer, what tends to happen is it goes into the sleep mode, and then after a period of time, it actually turns off, then actually goes into a sleep or a hibernation. So it depends on the settings of your computer as to which way it's actually doing it, but normally by default, it actually goes into a sleep mode and actually turns off a lot of the devices in order to save power while it's on battery. And when it's on power as well, it will reduce the amount of electricity that you're using. From it being completely off, so the battery is drained or you're completely shut it off, that's called a cold boot. It means there's absolutely no power to it. It's starting cold, and it will then start to load the system and load up everything that's required at the beginning of operating the device. Now, to get it to a state where it's actually cold, so you've turned it completely off, most of the time with any kind of computer, you do not want to use the power button to do that. If you're using the power button to do that, especially if you're holding down the power button, when you hold down the power button for a period of time, usually about 5 to 10 seconds, that then cuts all power to the machine. So the system hasn't had time to actually close down and actually remove all the temporary files that exist while it's operating. You know, you imagine it like a kitchen, and there's all kinds of things, plates being served and waiters running around and whatever. If you just cut power to that, all the plates are up in the air and everything hits the ground. Don't hold down the power button if you're using a laptop or a desktop. If you want to shut down a tablet or a phone, then you do hold down the power button. So you hold that down for 5 to 10 seconds, and then a little message will pop up on the screen that say, do you want to power down, restart, or hibernate? So you then select power down. So sometimes you just tap it and then it'll ask you to tap again, or you'll only have to tap once, or you'll have to swipe. On Apple products, usually you have to swipe. And then that will completely shut down the device, and then you can leave it completely off and then cold boot it. Now, when do you want to do this? Typically, if you're traveling, you want to do this. If you're getting onto a plane, you need to completely power down the device. If you're going to go through all kinds of x-ray machines and that sort of thing, aviation rules. Now, a lot of times the plane, they will tell you can then turn on your device in aeroplane mode, which that's a whole different topic. But the device should be completely powered down first. That's when you hold down the power button on tablets and phones, iPads, iPhones, Android phones, etc. But if it's a laptop or a desktop, you do not use the power button. So what do you do with a laptop or a desktop? You go and you click on the actual start button that you'll find in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, and you then select the little power button. As we talked about, is a 0 with a 1 through it. You click on that, and then you click shut down or update and shut down or restart if you just want to restart the machine. On a Mac, it's different. You click on the Apple symbol that's up there, and then you select the shutdown option from there. It'll then completely power off the device. So on certain laptops, on the function keys, you'll also find the snore button. I call it the snore button. It could be also called the snooze button. It has little Z's on it. So the little Z's, when you press that button, the computer goes into a low power sleep mode. Now, usually you have to access that by directly pushing the button, or you have to hold down the FN key down the bottom that activates the functions, and then you press that, and that will then create the snooze. If that is the case, usually the FN key and the snooze little Z's are the same color. That means you probably have to hold down that FN key first to get that. If they're not, you probably just have to push that key on its own. When a computer is in sleep mode and it's open up and like the laptop screen is already open, you basically just press any of the keys or tap the actual touchpad, and that will activate your laptop. On a desktop, you can just move the mouse or press any of the keys on the keyboard, and that will bring it back to life. Try not to press multiple keys, because what happens if you're in the middle of doing something and the screen has gone off and you want to bring it back to life and you push multiple keys, you actually may start doing things on the computer. So the first key press will bring it to life, and the key presses after that, it will then do whatever those key presses are normally supposed to do. So typically only need to hit one key. In order to be safe, I typically use the arrow keys. They're probably the safest ones because they normally aren't actually going to say yes to anything or no to anything or start deleting documents or anything to that effect. You can just press the arrow key on your keyboard, and then that should be fine. Basically, you can just move the mouse as well. That performs exactly the same function. Some devices, typically desktops, actually have a reset button as well, which is when you push it, it temporarily cuts power and the power comes straight back on again, so you don't have to repress the button. But that essentially is only really available on very specific devices. So that is how you can turn on and off various different devices. So if you're having any other kinds of problems with your computer, or you need to learn how to use Windows 10 or your Mac, you can always come and do one of our basic courses. It's available on our website there. You can read all about them. Of course, if you have any problems with your computer or you need repairs done, we are here ready to help you. I'm Gareth from Get It Fixed. Thank you for watching.